recording. Perfect. So today we're going to start discuss on how to prepare for an interview, some of the tips and tricks, do's and don'ts, and some of the materials that you should always try to bring with you to an interview. So some of the interview overview. An interview can always be, very nerve-wracking, but taking some time to self-reflect on your own skills, interests, and passions, as well as researching the employer, will only help ease the tension of the interviewing process. Seeking other career-related resources such as your career development office or perhaps, a mentor or a friend or colleague can help practice answering the most common and also the most difficult questions, which can alleviate some of those interview jitters. Also note that having questions for the employer is key. They're not just there to interview you, but you are also there to interview them. Again, some of the preparation and self-reflection piece. Before the interview, prepare and do a self-reflection. Identify your skills, passions, and interests and relate to the position that you're applying for. Remember, to dress professional, business suit attire is for the interview. Bring a portfolio with you and bring some multiple copies of your resume, perhaps your cover letter, references, and letters of recommendation. Oftentimes, you will have already uploaded the majority of these documents on your application online, but having these professional documents with you not only shows your professionalism, but the initiative that you brought them just in case the employer were to ask for these documents. Do your homework again, like I said, by researching the company and finding out what is their vision, what is their mission, and maybe you can identify some of what their core values are. And do they align with your career goals or what you envision yourself doing there? Keep these in mind when researching opportunities, organizations within companies and employers. Oftentimes, if you know who you'll be interviewing, or who will be interviewing you rather, you can always search them via LinkedIn and connect with them to find out a little bit about them as a person, where they went to college and what they studied and how did they get to where they are now. And again, this can go a really long way in an interview setting. So here are some of the different types of interviews. We have phone, Skype, and in person, which many, if not all of you, have had it before. When meeting face-to-face with the employer for an in-person interview, be sure to bring extra copies again of your resume, cover letter, and perhaps even a list of recommendations or references. Always dress business professional, so when in doubt, always dress this way. And lastly, leave the cell phone in the car. Put it on silent mode or turn it off completely. This will prevent any distractions throughout the interview. More and more employers are conducting what we know as now Skype interviews, so ensuring you know on how to work Skype, having the most updated version updated on your laptop or your computer, as well as making sure your sound and microphone work. Always doing a practice run is highly recommended and suggested. So as you're setting up to do a Skype interview, make sure you're in a nice quiet area with little to no distractions. Also, having a background that isn't too busy or distracting to the employer is also highly recommended. And just keep in mind what is behind you, so just making sure having appropriate surroundings and professional composure in a Skype interview is essential. So just look at it as it is a in-person interview. It's typically just about the same. And lastly, we have phone appointments. So phone appointments can be pretty daunting, but ensuring a few things before an employer calls you at a scheduled time, making sure you have good cell phone reception, you're in a quiet environment with little to no distractions, and if you feel that the inflection in your voice gives off a monotone or having little to no enthusiasm, you may want to get up and walk around to kind of have more of that beat in your voice to talk to the employer. It will boost your energy levels and make you sound more enthusiastic about the opportunity you're interviewing for. Again, as we have kind of briefly mentioned, to dress business professional. So suit jacket will suffice for an interview. Press or iron your clothes is a big key here before an interview. Presentation is obviously everything, so refrain from wearing, distracting or loud jewelry that may hinder you, or, it may be too distracting during the interview. Wearing strong smelling perfume or cologne. Be sure just to be well groomed. Sometimes you might have ladies for you. You might want to pull your hair back away from your face. And for men, just be sure that you're clean shaven. Take note if the employer, emails you instructions and if they want you to dress otherwise. So if they say business casual, just make sure you understand that those are two completely different things. Business casual is more relaxed, but not too relaxed. Comfortable feeling, whereas business suit professional is more upscale and formal, as you have seen it appear in the pictures above. Women need length skirts with a cardigan and slacks with a matching business jacket, along with flats or a small kitten heel. And men are in a suit and tie. So just make sure that the two match with nice slacks and professional dress shoes. Next, we're going to go on to body language. So nonverbal cues and body language are something to know when you're in an interview setting. Oftentimes it can be very minor, but it can really say a lot about a particular candidate. So some of the do's are smiling, nodding your head, and leaning into the interviewer, as this shows that you're interested in what the interview is having to say and that you're engaged in the conversation. Some of the don'ts would be like refraining from slouching, standing, or sitting straight up. Just make sure that you're doing that. And don't sound like too rehearsed or too robotic. So just kind of make sure that your answers seem authentic and natural. Try to refrain from touching your face or hair. You want to show that you're interested and leave the interviewer on a positive note. And also, if you find yourself fiddling with your thumbs or fidgeting in general, placing your hands underneath the table will kind of keep that to a minimum. So now we're going to go back to researching the employer. Doing your homework and researching the company or organization you may be interviewing with, you want to read up again on their vision and mission statement, understanding the core values and seeing where they align. Include this somewhere throughout your interview, as this is adding a personal touch to the interview itself. Check out the resources such as salary.com and nice.com, where ideas are given about starting salaries for this given position. You can see what former or current employees mention about the company or organization. You can also find multiple common and difficult interview questions that are often asked, maybe even for the job or type of job you are applying for. So typically you will find those on glassdoor.com. So viewing these sites ahead of time could save you a lot of stress in the long run. Some of the different types of interview questions that many of you have kind of maybe seen or gone through in the past, or maybe you have one coming up, are a variety. So here we have behavioral-based interview questions, where the employer here wants to know your train of thought. You do this through utilizing what we call in the office here STAR format. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. So here we have, I kind of provided an example for you guys. So tell me about a time when you struggled to meet a deadline, or tell me a time that you had a conflict with one of your coworkers. That's really what they're looking for, is kind of how your thought process would go about dealing with a certain situation. Next, we have situational based interview, and this can vary case by case. It usually starts off by tell me about a time when. So all of those are based around a different situation. They're looking for you to provide an example about painting a picture for that employer in regards to how do you handle certain situations or incident, and letting them know what was the end result of that particular issue. And last but not least, we do have open-ended interview questions. So these are very broad and general and vary as well. So some of these could be even off-the-wall type questions, like what kind of tree would you be? Or, they're looking for some sort of creativity here. So kind of keeping it professional, but there is no right or wrong answer. So just do keep that in mind, that some of those questions do tend to come up in an interview. Moving on, we have some practice interview questions. The most common, obviously, the number one common question that you'll find is, tell me a little bit about yourself. So here they're not looking for, oh, well, I was born in Indiana and I went to high school there and I was on the volleyball team. No, they're looking for something more current. So they're looking to say, I'm currently an NSU student. I'm pursuing this degree. and tell them a little bit about maybe why you got excited into what it is that you're doing or what passion that you have and what is it that you're looking to do. Next, we have like, why did you leave your last job? So some of those you might want to focus on the positives, like I was looking for another opportunity, or maybe, you're looking for more responsibility or more challenge. So again, just kind of going through these and like practicing, maybe answering these with a friend or a family member can definitely help. So here on the next page, I have listed some of the interview questions that you yourself want to kind of look for before going into an interview. So you may even ask some of these questions like to the employer, not necessarily the first question, but you would want to ask like, you want to kind of do a self-reflection as far as like, where would you want to work, a small versus a big corporation, or maybe it's a public versus private. And you can always ask them like, what is the training program like? But kind of putting yourself in the hiring manager's shoes, it's like, what would you look for, right? We always have to think about it like that. So some of these are the questions to start thinking about prior to the interview. What skills or abilities would you want the interviewee to have? Taking a look at your resume and see what it is that you have and what the employer is looking for, and then that's where you find those gaps where you can obtain these, and then that can be a point where you can obtain some of these skills or abilities, and then kind of take that initiative to put it into action. So getting ready. A lot of you know that arriving early really means 10 to 15 minutes before the actual interview time. So say if you had an appointment or an interview at 10 o'clock. So you really want to be there at like 9:40 or 9:45. So if you were there at 10, that's actually considered late, right? Again, just making sure you're greeting the front desk with a smile and a strong handshake. Some of these are very important as they are first impressions in interviews, and they do stick out more than you think. So arriving early, this gives you time to prepare, relax, and take a few minutes before heading into the interview. During the interview, we have some things called behavioral-based questions. So we have briefly touched on this by talking about the STAR method. Some of the most common interview questions in an interview will be that are asked are based around our behavior and our hypothetical type questions. So answering these questions in that STAR format is key. So again, tell me about a time. So they set up the situation. You'll describe the task that was done at hand, the action that you took, and then kind of describe what were the end results, what was the outcome. And then other related questions that may be asked would be, here they want to know what you did, how did you handle the situation again, what was the outcome or end result of the given situation. So here I just kind of briefly, I said like, tell me about a time you failed at a task that you were assigned and how did you handle it. So here I'm giving you a kind of like a brief example of an answer. And then below I have also given you some other related questions that may be in that same behavioral-based question format. So how did you handle setting your goals? Can you provide me an example when you didn't get along with someone, or how you guys were able to divvy up or distribute tasks to each other in a group setting? So again, the STAR method, preparing for this. So situation, talking about the background. Task describes like the problem at hand and challenges that you may face. The action is explaining what you did and how it was solved or calculated. And the results would be the benefits or rewards or recognitions that were identified throughout the situation. So this is like, again, very common. Having more experience answering these kind of questions will only make you feel more comfortable about answering these kind of questions in the interviews, and you won't be as nervous. So again, some interviews tips and tricks. So that tell me about yourself, making sure to keep it plain and simple, to the point. Leaving previous job question, refrain from bad-mouthing or bashing previous employer or colleagues. Again, when they ever mention salary, that is something where you say you're negotiable on maybe on like your application. I wouldn't necessarily bring it up unless, of course, the employer brought it up. You do want to have a mindset. So by looking at the tip here, where I've had mentioned the salary.com, where we all, and I also have a couple links later on in a couple slides where you have nice.com as well. And you can actually put in like your major, what you're studying, how long you've been in the industry, and then that will give you a broad range of what to expect. So that way you kind of have a given number just in case if that question were to come up. Again, the last but not least, what are your goals for the future? So they might ask you, well, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? Mention your skills, your abilities, maybe possibly having more responsibilities. You may want to climb up the ladder within the company. And lastly, give examples of positive results or changes that you would like to make, possibly, or contribute to that company. So again, some do's and some don'ts. Some do's are to dress obviously appropriately. Check to see if they want you to dress business casual or professional. More often than not, again, it would be dressing business professional. Arriving early, asking for clarification during the interview, say if you don't understand or if you want them to rephrase a certain question. Introduce yourself again with a smile, a firm handshake. Talk about your successes from previous experiences. And this can be within academics, such as class projects or previous work-related experiences. And then this is where you want to tie it back to the experiences in that position that you're applying for and how you would be perceived as an asset to the company or organization. Now, here are some of the don'ts. Don't just scan the employer website, so do some more research and digging on the career resource website to locate more information and what previous employers are having to say. Do not be late to the interview. So doing a trial run and identifying how long will it take for you to get there, take into consideration the traffic, things like that. Don't exaggerate or lie. And lastly, don't focus just on the salary piece because it's really about, are you going to be happy? Are you going to be satisfied in this particular industry or organization? And so during the interview, answering the questions is actually going to be very important. During the interview, we're going to go back to giving direct, short, and concise answers. So here you're not going to try to drag the question or drag the answer out. Again, ask the employer for clarity if you do not understand how they're asking, because this will provide you some time to go back and think, okay, how do they want me to answer this question? So give some time to think about that. For example, tell me a time you had to deal with a conflict with another team member. So here you want to maybe just say, instead of going to my boss to figure out what to do, you're then kind of working it out with that particular coworker and, figuring out a way to make it work. Here, what they're doing in the last question, what are your strengths and weaknesses? So here they could ask, what are you doing on how to improve your weakness, and make sure to put a positive spin on it. They're not looking like, oh, well, I'm terrible at this, but you're not explaining yourself as to how you're building or how you're working towards that. So one could be, I'm a check off to-do list type person. So I prioritize my time very well. I put the most important task at hand at the very top of the list, and then I work my way down to possibly maybe the least important priority so that I know that I'm getting everything done. So that could be a part of either a strength or a weakness. Questions for the employer. Towards the end of the interview, these are some interview questions you may ask. So either writing them out prior to the interview and printing them out, bringing them with you. This not only shows preparedness, but also professionalism. This shows that you're interested in learning more about them, how you can become a valuable asset. And this is always a great sign. So some of the questions you could ask would be like, what qualities and characteristics make up a successful sales manager? Or how am I evaluated and promoted? Or what are the opportunities for personal and professional growth? One question you could definitely ask them is say if they mention a big project that they're working on, you could always go about, well, how would I be able to contribute, or thinking of ways that how can I contribute to X project to be able to help them out in the future. Post-interview self-reflection and follow-up. So within that 24 to 48 hours following the interview, send the employer a follow-up email thanking them for their time and consideration. This include a personal touch as well. This does strike employees, and you will be kind of like standing out from the crowd. If you haven't heard back, again, like I said, from like within 10 to 14 business days, following up just with a brief email, just asking them, hey, just wanted to see how the hiring process was going. I just really was thrilled about this interview and this opportunity, and kind of leave it at that. This is also a time where you can self-reflect. Reflect on what you learned throughout the interview process, what you liked, what you didn't like, what caught you off guard. Given the opportunity during the interview, if they mention a possible, again, project or initiative, discuss the ways that you can contribute, again, because this is going to be really big. The most common interview mistakes. So some of which we discussed earlier, the 3 types of different interviews: in person, phone, and Skype. I've broken down the most common interview mistakes. So in person would be short and vague answers, arriving late, not professionally dressed for the interview, and lastly, no excitement or enthusiasm shows poor presentation from the interviewer's point of view. Phone interviews, again, be sure to be in a quiet environment with little to no distractions, and also have good cell phone reception. So again, short and vague answers, not having service, things like that. The Skype interview, again, identify it as just like as it would be for an in-person interview. Be sure to be in a quiet environment with little to no distractions. Be aware of your surroundings, again, as I previously mentioned in today's webinar. Nothing too busy or behind you that is distracting or not appropriate for an interview setting. So if you have like a poster or something like that, like, just be sure like you're not like in a busy environment as well. Like it's just like a plain background. Treat this like, again, like a real person interview, and then not even being professionally dressed. If it is in a Skype interview, it really does set the tone, like that the employer thinks that you're just not taking this seriously. So even given the fact that it is a Skype interview, just dressing professionally is definitely something you want to consider. Here are some of the often 10 most common interview mistakes. Refrain from talking, again, bad about our previous employers or coworkers if you didn't get along with them or didn't maybe see eye to eye on a situation. Answering with short and vague answers with no enthusiasm can turn the employer off, and it looks like you're not generally interested in the position or company. It shows poor preparedness as well. Turning off your cell phone, or don't even bring it in with you to the interview. Oftentimes, an employee phone will be vibrating with a text or it'll ring, so keeping these in the forefront will diminish any distractions throughout the interview. Not having researched the company or not having any questions for the employer, there is a big red flag. So remember, you're interviewing them as well, so ensuring they're a good fit for you. Not having any questions at the end of the interview, again, makes you seem disinterested in the position or the company. Focusing on negative energy or past experiences is no-no, so definitely try to focus in on the positives. And if attire is inappropriate, chances of you hearing back from the employer are slim to none. So what to not ask in an interview? First is salary. And guess, again, unless it is brought up otherwise by the employer, this may catch you off guard, so definitely be prepared for the unexpected and have an answer ready. When they ask you, what are your salary negotiations? Be willing to answer without hesitation. Next are benefits, vacation time, sick time, and promotion. These are items that can be asked or implied when you have been offered the position. Again, check the NACE.com for more information, or even salary.com regarding salary questions. So some of the things that we've kind of discussed today have then kind of brought me to this slide where we have what we here do in the office, in our career development office. We do offer mock interviews to help assist you in the interviewing process and to help ease those nerves. So if you happen to have an interview for a program, an internship, or even a job, we are here to help. So some of the benefits of doing a mock interview are practice answering some of the most difficult and common interview questions. This will reduce your interview anxiety and feel more comfortable during the interview. After completing a mock interview with us, you can receive feedback that will help improve your overall interviewing skills as well as gain and boost your confidence within an interview setting. So this again will help you in the future. Right here are some of the career links that I have listed. I'm sure there are more, but here are just a few of them. So again, these are great reading for previous or current employees. Experiences. This also provides interview questions that may be asked during your interview. So I know Glassdoor.com is really great about that. And let's see. And then on NACE, they'll give you, again, like I had mentioned before, that advanced filter where you put in, how many years of experience you have, major, where you live. It'll kind of give you a filter base to kind of put in location and all that great stuff. But you can also look at LinkedIn as well as Handshake. So again, like I had mentioned before, definitely kind of come in and have a mock interview with us, as this will help better prepare you. We also do have career labs on Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 11 to 1, where we can assist with resume, cover letters, LinkedIn, Handshake profiles, as well as interview prep steps. There's no appointment necessary for career labs, so you just come in, let the front desk know that you are here to do career labs, and we will be able to assist you. Again, I really hope you guys enjoyed this presentation today. I'd be more than happy to email this PowerPoint presentation to you all. Please let me know if you would like for me to send this to you in the chat box below. I hope you all have a great rest of your day and a good rest of the semester. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to contact me.